Hello and welcome to another episode of the djproject Criterion Collection. Today we're going to talk about Spine 304, The Man Who Fell to Earth, directed by Nicolas Roeg, 1976. I actually first heard of this film through my mother. Growing up, she was a big fan of David Bowie. I think her favorite persona that he did that she liked was the Thin White Duke. That was I think it's Stage, the live album that he put out in '78. I think that was probably one of the best portrayals of that persona. But at any rate, and she heard about this film coming out, and actually she went over to DuPont Circle in D.C. I want to say it was Pam that she went this through. With whom she went to go see this, and I think that was kind of it. I think she enjoyed it just to see David Bowie. As far as anything else that you can get out of it, wasn't entirely sure. But it was just fun just to go into the city and see David Bowie with her friend. And considering that what was initially distributed in America was a altered version anyway, that probably made even less sense than the full director's cut was. So anyway, so I can't really tell her what her impressions of it was, and nothing she says has informed my impressions of it. But usually when I think of this title, I think of her. But she actually got when this came out on Criterion Collection, she actually got it for me. And this is why I like Criterion. This is another title where it includes the actual book it's based off of, the Walter Tevis novel. And actually what I did before I saw it, and this was actually a really good thing I did this, I actually read the novel first before I saw the film. Because the film itself is, while it uses the novel, it also does very much its own thing. And if you have no idea what the basic plot of it is, all that stuff gets lost. And it's very easy to get lost in this film because there's narrative ellipses, there's a lot of disorienting inserts and the way things are shot. It's very much a very free-form, fairly experimental narrative, and it's good to have that underlying basis. And by the way, this is something else that I noticed right from the beginning. When I saw the cover artwork for this, I noticed the way the typeface is done. It reminds me of the paintings by Ed Ruschka, who actually is American, even though don't let the surname fool you. But he's done a couple different styles, but one of the painting styles that he was most famous for was to paint text in a canvas, usually single words or a phrase and such, and it's all about the color juxtapositions and the size and relations of it. So seeing that cover artwork kind of reminded me of Ed Ruschka. And I would not be surprised if that was an inspiration for the artwork for it. So yeah, what about the film itself? Well, like I said, there's a lot of things about it that it takes a couple viewings to get. And certainly the first one is a bit overwhelming because of the juxtapositions of things. And it does help to have read the book before going into it. And I'm going to say this right off the bat. Unfortunately, this is another title that's out of print. So, sorry about that. I'm sure it's available in other forms, I think. And certainly I believe the book is still available on its own. Or at the very least, I think you can get this secondhand. but alas, fact of life, I guess. Anyways, so yeah, it's very. It's a bit disorienting, but it's not as bad as it may seem. In fact, there are a few moments. Actually, there are a few moments that are quite memorable. The thing that when I think about this film, there are some things about it that still work for today. For it, well, anyway, okay. I guess even though I said earlier that I don't really like plot summaries, I guess I will give you one. Uh, this is the story of of an alien played by David Bowie. Yes, that's serious. Yes, everybody knew what they were doing with this. But anyways, but it goes by the name Thomas Jerome Newton, and I think it's a name that he himself adopted while he was on Earth, and he's on a mission to try the planet he's from is advanced in technology and advanced in other respects, except it is all without water. It is as dry as anything, and he is on a mission to try to retrieve water back to his home planet, and he notices that Earth has water. In fact, he first becomes aware of Earth through the initial radio and television broadcasts that came through. Although he has to be like really, really close in order to get the initial wave of it, so it's not really that. Actual science takes a backseat to this. It's that kind of science fiction. It's more speculative fiction than anything else, and the sci-fi is mostly there to raise other points and other issues. It's not necessarily about the technology itself or about the science itself. It's more about the ideas that it embodies. Anyways, so he goes to Earth, and the way he's going to do this is first he needs to raise some money to be able to build the stuff that he needs to do in order to transport it back. And he figures that the way to make money is to present patents of some highly advanced, some technology that's normal to him, but way advanced for Earth. And by having the patents, it would form the basis of a business, and this is a business that will immediately grow to something very large, and would provide a revenue stream that should more than adequately be able to do the services. And so he becomes a kind of industrial tycoon, and it's kind of funny thinking about it now, because the kind of attention and everything he gets is very similar to the kind of attention and scrutiny that Microsoft got in the 1990s and what Apple is getting today. And if I haven't said this already, I'm recording these vlogs on an Apple iPhone, so 4 for the moment. So it's and I say this because like one of the technologies that he comes up with is self-developing film, basically Polaroid, and it's it's like, wow, this is all great, and it's the kind of technology where everybody's excited and using it because it's so different, and then it becomes ubiquitous. It just becomes ever part of the cultural tapestry. So there you go. And his name is Newton too. Symbolism. Anyways, now of course with this kind of power and this kind of draw, it also attracts a lot of attention. And he himself is a very, very reclusive. I don't know if it's quite a commentary on Howard Hughes. I don't believe so, but there you have it. And what he has two people in his life, more or less. One is at a hotel he stays in New Mexico. There's a maid there, played by, bad form, I know, Candy Clark. Yeah, he was going out with Nicolas Roeg at the time. But anyways, she eventually becomes the love interest, and yes, you can imagine that eventually gets more and more complicated as time goes on. Then the other person in his life is played by Rip Torn, and who you see him. He's a science professor who becomes fascinated with this new corporation and wants to work with them, and eventually he does, and he ends up being both his best friend and his greatest betrayer. But anyway, some of the issues that are raised in the film, there's the notion of winning, and that it's all about making it to the top, and everybody wants you, and if once you're on the top, everybody wants you. Either they want a piece of you or to drag you down to their level, or often both. There's the usual critiques about consumerist society and the various alienations that can arise. One very interesting image is Newton in his house. It's set up that he's one to process a lot of information, and he likes having a lot of stimulation around him. So he would have lots of TVs that were tuned to different channels, and so he would watch them all simultaneously. It gets to the point where he has this large thing. This rivals Elvis Presley's 3 TVs. This has 16 TVs. They're all set up to different broadcasts, and he's all watching these TVs at the same time, and he looks quite a little demented, and he at some point he says, "Yeah, get out of my mind, all of you!" And all these broadcasts are there. It's quite a nice image. Let's see. Then there's like notions of love, and there's love lost, and there's disconnect. There's all kinds of other stuff that goes on. I will say this about the film: there are some things that are still very striking and very relevant, like the large corporation and or rising to the top, and then suddenly you become a target for everybody. That's still very relevant. But then there's some other things that you could tell that this was made in 1976. Particularly the emphasis on sex and nudity. It seemed to be this thing that everybody loved to do. It's like, how much can you get away with, and how much can you do? And again, it's not pornographic. That's not the point. But it's all about like, what can you? It's this perception of let's break down some more barriers. And so there's, and I think that's a characteristic of the 70s. And in that sense, it does, those aspects of it date the film, and limit to it in some. And I think also some of the experimentation comes off as somewhat quaint, not in the sense that it's been overused, but in the sense that it's not as entirely disorienting, or it's not as odd. Maybe I'm saying this is because I'm used to seeing all kinds of odd things anyway. So maybe for others it'll be like, what the hell is this? But definitely narrative ellipses, and also the sense of time. This whole story is supposed to take place over the course of decades, but everything is still operating within the same year. There's only so much that you can do with a limited budget. And by the way, I believe this was one of the first features to be made by EMI Films. So this is Michael Dealey and Barry Spikings, who would later also be involved with The Deer Hunter, and Michael Dealey would help produce Blade Runner. So there you go. I would say that if you have an interest in science fiction, particularly the what can be called soft science fiction, where it's more speculative. Again, it's more about the ideas rather than the technology and the science of it. Um, Again, like not Star Trek. Star Trek, I would consider more hard sci-fi with some soft sci-fi elements into it. It deals with other themes, but it's certainly, but at the heart of it, it's very rooted in the science of it. But it's not space opera like Star Wars. This is more of a like a sci-fi art film of sorts. If you like that, if you like more of the artsy bent, this would be, and also if you're a fan of David Bowie, and this was the film that started his acting career. And interestingly enough, working on that film was one of the threads that led him to do what would become the Berlin trilogy, Low, Heroes, and Lodger. And actually, from what I understand, one of the songs from Low was intended to be a part of the soundtrack. He did try to compose songs for it, but then it didn't work, and I think it was a combination of temp tracks and just other music that just kind of became a part of it. So Bowie was not involved in the soundtrack element of it, but there was one idea that he did that would form the basis of one of the songs off of Low, Subterraneans. I've been told, but at any rate, so I would say if you like science fiction, if you like your films weird, especially 70s weird, if you like David Bowie, definitely check it out. And like I said, it's unfortunate that that it is out of print, because again, I really love the packaging of this, and I love the fact that the book is included. If you do decide to see it, I do recommend that you read the book first, because the film is not going to help you much with with the plot. It is helpful to have that sense of what the sequence of events and who the characters are, and a little bit about motivations, because the film itself is going to keep a lot of several things oblique and a bit obscure. So I would definitely recommend that you read the book before you see the film, if you go ahead and see it. So yeah. The Man Who Fell to Earth. And until next time, take care.